guys, I'm here to do a book review. I'm super excited to talk about this book because it has to do with movement work and abolition. The book I'm talking about is We Will Not Cancel Us and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice by Adrienne Maree Brown. Adrienne Maree Brown is an activist, a writer, mediator, and I'm pretty sure she lives in Oakland, which is where I live too. The other popular book I know by her is Pleasure Activism, which I started, didn't end up finishing because I actually had some problems with that book. I'm gonna go back, reread, and probably write a longer review on why I didn't like it, but yeah. But this book I actually really did like, and I wrote a review on my Bookstagram, which I'm gonna link in the description box below. So this book is really accessible. I'm just gonna say that. That's super important, and I think that's one of the best parts about this book. It's less than 100 pages. Actually, it's less than 90 pages, and it's super readable, and there's definitions, which I love because I feel like a lot of times, especially in movement work, progressive circles, leftist circles, we're using words, but two people aren't defining it the same way. So I like that she included definitions in here. What is harm? What is abuse? What is conflict? What is a contradiction? So this book is really accessible, and I really like it. So this book is actually the result of a blog post that Adrienne Maree Brown wrote in 2020. And the blog post, let me just get the title, which I probably will also link in the description box below. It's called Unthinkable Thoughts, Call Out Culture in the Age of COVID-19. So in this blog post, which would eventually become this book with some alterations, she talks about this call-out culture that she notices happening in leftist groups. And this call-out culture isn't positive. It isn't the kind of call-out culture that's actually resulting in any change. What's happening is that something bad happens, and then someone will call them out, but not really give them the opportunity to change, learn, restore, or even have like a dialogue about what actually happened. And then also, usually the person who does the kind of like, I'm better than you, I just called you out, sooner or later it will come out that they also committed harm. And you just have this cycle of harmful people calling out harmful people without any restorative or transformation happening. Now, Adrienne Maree Brown says that call-out culture is not bad. It's not bad to call out someone. And often that's the only tool that marginalized groups have against really powerful people and really powerful corporations. Obviously, you're not gonna go through a rehabilitation process with Nike or someone as powerful as Weinstein. So you have to call them out. You have to call them out. But when it comes to peer-to-peer relations, Adrienne Maree Brown cautions us against using call-out culture, against using, threads on Twitter to heal interpersonal rifts. And that's what her blog post is essentially about. So I found this really interesting because I kind of noticed the same. Constantly calling out people, not giving them the space to explain, not giving them the space to change. That's not how people change. And I do believe that people can change. I do believe the vast majority of people can change. And that's why I really appreciated that she wrote this book. And I want to talk about this book, but also abolition. The road to abolition, just because you don't think the current system isn't working doesn't mean you're an abolitionist. And I feel like a lot of people need to get that through their heads because they're calling themselves abolitionists, but then the second incarceration works in their favor, they're all pro-incarceration. That's just not how it works. Abolition means total, complete doing away with the current system, not leaving the current system if it works against my enemy. That's not what abolition is. You have to be completely against it. So the road to abolition is tough. And would I call myself an abolitionist? No, because I'm honest with the way that I'm still not over retributionist urges. The thing I liked about this book is that Adrienne Maree Brown doesn't back down. Her blog post originally got a lot of good feedback, but also a lot of negative feedback. And she could have deleted the blog post, but she actually alters it, takes into, consideration the critiques that she got from people, and writes this book. The other thing I like about this book is that she didn't say that call-out culture was completely bad, because it's really not. Sometimes you do have to call people out. If someone is in your community causing a bunch of harm, they won't sit down for any accountability processes, then sorry bro, I gotta call your ass out because you need to be stopped in your tracks. But why are you calling out someone for being a toxic friend on Twitter? If you have conflict, sit down, work it out with them, and then move on. Move on. There is this retributionist joy that people get from enacting revenge, being like, this person's harmful, this person's toxic, stay away from them. Not necessary. Sit down with that person, hash it out. If you can't hash it out, move on. You don't have to go on Twitter, write this full-on threads to get everybody in on this fucking conflict that they don't even know what it's really about. Adrienne Maree Brown is clear to distinguish. If it's sexual abuse, if it's domestic violence, that's different. But for other things, there is a way to sit down with someone and be like, hey, this is how you did me wrong. Especially when it comes to for example, saying something offensive. saying something offensive or doing something, non-abusive that's offensive, like this can be hashed out by sitting down. This abolitionist that I follow, they tweeted, "How are you an abolitionist but you're conflict avoidant?" People are conflict avoidant. They don't want to hash it out with the person face to face, so they'll go on the internet and be like, "Stay away from this person is bad." And it's like, first of all, the bad good dichotomy, you can't use that in an abolitionist world. Like, people aren't bad, people aren't good, people make mistakes and then they got to come back from it. Or hopefully we hope that they want to come back from it. So that's what I appreciated about this book. I think this was necessary. I think this was a necessary reflection on a lot of movement work, because Twitter is just a cesspool. I see people getting called out every day on not on some bullshit. I mean, some of the things people are getting called out is necessary again, but some of the shit is like, they said offensive things. Okay. Someone can come back from that. I mean, if you're gonna call yourself an abolitionist, the very least is that you can come back from something that you said that was offensive. So the thing I didn't love about this book is that, and this is something a lot of abolitionists do, they talk about most people can be healed. Okay, most people can be healed, we get it. Everyone commits harm, we get it. But there are people who just are addicted to committing harm. What are we supposed to do with them? Like, I get it. Like, if you're an abolitionist, you cannot believe in incarceration. I get it. But what are you going to do with people who are just not even willing to sit down for accountability processes, who are literally like just committing harm in an almost addictive way? They hate black people. They hate queer people. They hate women. Like, they're not down to sit down for a talk. Like, what are you going to do with those people? Because, like, I want to call myself an abolitionist because, I hate the current system of policing and imprisonment. And, I want to get to a place where we're not putting people in cages. But then I look at people who are just like committing harm over and over and over and over and over again. They don't care. And it's not due to like economic need or even socialization. They were raised in a really good neighborhood, whatever. They just literally like love committing harm. And I'm just like, oof, I don't know. I don't know what to do in that situation, and I would like abolitionists to actually tackle that head on. And then let me talk about abolition. I was reading reviews on this, and people love this book. Obviously, it has like 4.3 stars on Goodreads, but some people were saying that Adrienne Maree Brown is a harm apologist, and I think that's very unfair. Adrienne Maree Brown is not a harm apologist. The truth is, y'all aren't abolitionists, and I want to get into this because this is really important. I've been seeing tweets that talk about this. A lot of people think they're abolitionists, but they're really not. Just because you hate the current system of policing and prisons doesn't make you an abolitionist. Because some of y'all say, I hate the current system, fuck cops, fuck prisons, but then when your enemy gets incarcerated, you're all happy and you're like, woo, I love incarceration. Well, then you're not an abolitionist. To be an abolitionist, you have to be against incarceration, no matter who it is. And I've started to realize this because just talking about myself, I used to really believe in reform, and I really don't anymore. I even wrote an article for Huffington Post about why I don't believe that body cameras work. I'll link that in the description box. But I used to be really big into reform. Obviously saw all these instances like Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, George Floyd, and I'm like thinking, these body cameras aren't working, and police and prisons aren't working at all. So I became an abolitionist. In my mind, I was an abolitionist. But I started realizing I still have that retributionist urge, because when cops get incarcerated, when Weinstein gets incarcerated, I'm happy. I'm happy. And granted, I understand that contradiction is fine, but I'm realizing, I'm happy, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I'm there yet. I want to be there yet, but I'm still happy when bad people get incarcerated. I still am wondering what will happen to bad people. I'm not really willing to do away with all incarceration. And that just means I have more work to do. But that's what I would challenge people to do, is like, you're calling Adrienne Maree Brown a harm apologist, but the fact is that if you are in an abolitionist world, you have to be pro face-to-face conflict. You can't have it both ways. To be an abolitionist, you do have to be against incarceration of all forms, no matter who the subject is. And that's when I started realizing, like, a lot of people are calling themselves abolitionists, and they're really not. You just hate the current system, but you're not there yet. And that's okay. We need to be honest about not being there yet, because I need to be honest about how I'm not there yet. Just because she says that you have to sit down and talk about what happened and talk about what boundaries need to be in place and how the community can support both people doesn't make her a harm apologist. It just makes you not an abolitionist. You're not an abolitionist. And a lot of people need to sit with that. And maybe you want to be, and so then you have to do the readings, but you're not gonna call abolitionists harm apologists. That's not what they are. To be honest, like, people wanna call abolitionists harm apologists, but the real harm apologists are people who are pro-incarceration. Because if you look at the disparities in incarceration, Black people are incarcerated way more, arrested way more. There's a lot of abuse that happens in prisons. So, I mean, if abolitionists are harm apologists, then you're a harm apologist because you're okay with this system that sexually abuses women in prison, that, you know, incarcerates black people, kills black people on death row at a higher rate than they do white people. So, I mean, like, let's keep it a buck. Harm apologists over here, harm apologists over there. Like, I just feel like people are trying to change the meaning of abolition because they're not ready to sit with the fact that you can't be conflict avoidant. You can't avoid harm, people who commit harm. In an abolitionist world, you would have to sit down with them, try to restore them, try to rehabilitate them. And you have to believe in the goodness of people to be an abolitionist, and a lot of you guys aren't there. Read this book, let me know what you think. I know this video was very jumbled, and I was just talking about a lot of thoughts, but yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.